Today we are going to be building out probably one of my absolute favorite workflows, which allows you inside n8n to automatically generate full-blown documents inside a platform called PandaDoc. Now, there is so many benefits to doing this. Let's go over a couple because I'm sure that this is going to help really save you time and hopefully make you more money at the same time as well. Now, the first thing is when you're generating documents inside PandaDoc, you'll notice that we can generate all of these fields that can be automatically filled in as soon as the document's generated. So personally, I always had to go in here, fill these fields out. I'd want to stab out my eyes because it would just be so boring to do this every single time. And when you're dealing with like 100 of these fields in any given document, it just absolutely sucks to do manually. And it's just not a good return on your investment when you could focus your time on other things. Past that, inside PandaDoc, what I really love about this solution, or why I think that this particular build is so powerful, is because you can have a two-in-one document where people can both sign and then are immediately prompted to pay at the same time. Because a lot of the times when you send off contracts and then invoices separately, people conveniently sign, but then they might forget to pay for like 6 months, and then it could lead to cash flow issues. Another couple things that I really like about PandaDoc is that you can have all of these tokens in here that are automatically generated, like I mentioned before, but you can also have fields in here. So if a client, for example, needs to provide you information before they go ahead and sign and pay, you can ask them to enter in information. So just as an example, let's say I need to know the payment method that the client wants before we go ahead and have them sign. I can have a field in here that I'm adding in where before they can actually complete the document, they have to select the method on which they want to pay: credit card, cash, bank deposit, and so on and so forth. In addition to that, you can also have custom terms and services. So we can conditionally render this. So let's say you have a landscaping business and you offer two services. One's landscaping and one is hedge trimming. Let's say you want one term for hedge trimming and another term for landscaping. You can all of a sudden completely like dynamically insert separate terms depending on the service that the client actually inquired about, which I think is just like incredibly powerful. And the best part about this software actually is probably the pricing table, because it's so flexible. Not only can you have multiple products like agency services, social media services, or ad campaign services, but every single piece of the product can be dynamic. So you can always have changing prices, quantities, discounts, and taxes. And on top of all of that, you can also have optional upsells, which is super powerful, because if you put additional products in front of customers, chances are some are going to close, meaning more money in your pocket. So let's say a customer comes along and they're like, you know what, maybe I do want to add services. They go ahead and check the box, and you'll notice the price here is going to change automatically because it's going to be added onto the bill, and then they can check out and pay for that, which is only going to lead over time to more money in your pocket. Now, of course, we can generate contracts, proposals, and invoices in one document, but there's actually so many other things that we can generate too. So for instance, we could do service agreements, we could do quotes, we could do NDAs, we could do offer letters, we could do purchase orders, liability waivers, or whatever other document that you're looking to generate for your clients. The reason why this matters is because this saved me literally 30 minutes every single time I generated a document myself. In my last business, we were very sales heavy. We were doing 16 of these documents every single day, and 30 minutes would equate to 8 hours that we saved by automating this process every day, which was the equivalent of hiring somebody at $60,000 a year. So we saved 60 grand every single year just based on this. Now, if you're just pumping out one of these a month, probably not the best video for you, but if you're wanting to sell these solutions, like a solution like this to clients, this is a great one, because pretty much every company that deals with this kind of stuff at scale is going to want a system like this. And if you are a sales heavy company and you're doing a couple of these every single day or week, then this is going to win back so much of your time so that you can focus that time on, for example, closing more deals and making more money. Now, all the blueprints are going to be down below for free. And I want to take it a step further, where I'm going to show you that once somebody goes ahead and actually pays this document, how you can automate the process of bookkeeping by sending this information straight into QuickBooks. With that being said, let's dive into this right now. I want to talk about the technology costs and limitations first. So in order for us to get this set up, we do need an n8n account. You can get this on a free trial, and we also need a PandaDoc account as well. And this you can sign up with a free trial as well. Now, there is one limitation to this, and I'm going to tell you that and then tell you a workaround to it. You need API integrations, okay? Which means that in order for you to actually get the production API, you need to go onto an enterprise plan. It's going to be slightly more than $65 every single month. Now, you could also go ahead and do this just with the business plan if you don't want to contact their team to get this. It should take it shouldn't be too long, and you're going to save a substantial amount of time if you're using this all the time. So it's definitely worth the investment. But if you'd want to skip that process, I'll link down below in the description to a video where you can build the same thing out using make.com, and that way you don't have to go to the enterprise plan. You can go onto the business plan to get the CRM integration right here, and then that will give you access to building this out via make.com. With that being said, let's talk about how we can actually go into the process of styling these proposals. Now, the first thing is that inside our free account here, we're going to go over to templates in the sidebar here. Okay. And we're going to create a new template right over here. There's so many different ones that we can choose from. And the beautiful thing about PandaDoc that I really, really, really like, as opposed to a lot of other softwares, is that the proposals they provide, they actually look nice. A lot of the times you go into software and you're like, man, these just look absolutely disgusting. I can't believe I can't believe you're even, giving these as options. But PandaDoc is kind of the exception to the rule, I guess. I don't know. At least I really like the templates that you provide here. Now, I'm just going to choose this one because this is the one that I showed you at the beginning of the video. We'll go ahead and select this. Now, I'm not going to go too far into like designing this or anything like that. I just want to show you a couple tips. First of all, we can delete certain sections here by hitting the 3 dots and then deleting the page if we don't want additional information. Apart from that, what we can do here is we can add in as many of these custom variables as we want. And it's pretty simple. So let's say that we want to, for instance, add in terms here. We could hit the square slash right here, okay? And then we can type in something like client dot, I don't know, terms. And then we can hit the other square slash. And now all of a sudden we can create a custom field inside PandaDoc where this can be automatically filled in from within n8n, okay? And so that's how we can create custom fields inside n8n or inside, a PandaDoc agreement. But let's say we wanted to take a step further and we wanted to generate a date field like down here for the client to have to actually, notify us the date that they signed the agreement. We could go ahead and just drag something in from the sidebar over here. So whatever field that we wanted to, we could just drag it over and we're good to go. Now, one thing with these fields is that if they're a fillable field, it means that somebody has to sign off on them. And this is generally going to be you or it's going to be the client. And so up at the top right corner here, we can decide which roles we have. And typically we want a client role and we want a sender role. Okay. The sender is you because you're sending the document to somebody, and the client is the recipient who is going to be signing and paying on your behalf, which brings us to the last section, which is payment. If we want to go ahead and scroll up to the pricing table over here, and if you want to add one, you can just drag and drop a pricing table onto the agreement, but we need to customize this quite a bit. First of all, we have 3 different things here: project management fee, consulting fee, and this documentation fee. We're going to delete all of this. Okay. This is just like template, boilerplate kind of stuff that they throw in there. So I'm just going to delete all of these rows. Oops, didn't look like that. Deleted. So I'm going to do it again. And we actually don't want anything in this table. What we'd like to do instead is we want to hit the properties button here. So when we click on the table, you'll get access to this navigation part here. We'll hit properties and merge data. Okay, we'll click on this and enable. What this is doing is we're essentially, and that's it, by the way, all we're doing here is we're saying we want to receive data externally from like a CRM or from an external application. And that application is going to be n8n because we're going to be generating these documents from within n8n. And so as soon as we go ahead and set up the merge data, then we're good to go. The last thing that I want to talk about here in terms of actually setting up these proposals inside PandaDoc is we actually need to accept payments. Okay, so we're going to hit the payments tab here, and you will need to integrate in your payment gateway. So this could be like Stripe or whatever. So if you haven't done so already, you need like something like Stripe, for example, or Square or whatever payment infrastructure that you want to collect payments through. This is pretty standard. Anytime you receive payments online, you're going to have to set something up like that. And once you've gone ahead and done that, then you can add payment option, which will allow you to collect money from people. And we need to assign who is going to pay, because right now it's just you and the client. you probably don't want to pay for the services you're providing for the client. So you're going to get them to be the payee, or the person that's going to go ahead and pay the agreement as soon as they sign it right over here. Okay. And so that's essentially it. We've officially set up a document. We've talked about how all of this works together. And the last thing that you just need to do is go ahead and, customize this and make sure you're happy with the actual design, look, feel, and all of the fields that are going into it. Cool. So now that we've actually gone ahead and done that, let's talk about this workflow here. So there's a trigger, then there's an AI node, and then we're generating the agreement. Let's talk about the trigger here. There's lots of different ways that we could actually generate this contract. I'll start with the most common way that I've seen, and the one that I always use myself and sell to clients. But essentially, there's a sales call. Okay. So typically how this works is I get on a sales call with a client, because that's where the sales happen. And usually it's not over like text or email. And I will go through the process of selling them on the phone. So let's say I'm talking to somebody like Sandy. I'll pick up the phone and be talking to her, and she has no idea that I'm filling out a questionnaire as we're talking, because I'm entering all the information we're talking about. So I might be like, hey, Sandy, how are you doing today? Like, can you tell me what service you're looking for? Okay, SEO, perfect. I'll select SEO. Sweet. And can you tell me the deadline you're looking for? Oh, you're looking for the 24th. That's when it needs to be done. Perfect. I'll enter that in. And can you tell me the problem it is that, you're having and how I can help? And she'll be like, well, I need help with SEO, for example. And I'll be like, no problem. How about, option A, B, or C here? We can offer you like automated blog posting. Okay, like an automated blog posting system. And she might be like, yeah, that's a great idea. And so I'll write this in, and then I'll ask her, hey, do you have like additional needs with Google Ads or social media or whatever? And she might be like, yeah, I'm thinking about ads. Maybe you can add that as an upsell on the agreement. And then we go ahead, finish the call, and I just click submit here. Okay. And when I click submit, that would officially be the trigger point here to create that contract. And let me just back up here by saying that with this particular agreement, and I'm just going to move these, we're going to slide this over a bit, but with this particular agreement, we could have this upsell option here, ad campaigns, okay? And the reason that came into play was because I selected this upsell. So now I can programmatically add additional upsells that Sandy could later, once receiving the agreement, decide whether she wants to spend more money, which just means that if you send out enough of these, you're going to have additional clients paying you more money, which means you're making more profit. And so this is a great way to pad the profit that you actually make in your business. Sweet. So that's just one option. This is the most common way that I see it working, but let me give you a couple other options that you can play around with as well. So the second one is using a chatbot on your website. So let's say somebody messages you and they're like, hey, can you send me over an invoice? You could then go ahead and then send over that invoice directly to them. Another option is maybe you're, just like the n8n pricing page, maybe you have different packages, and maybe it's like, hey, buy the pro package now. They click this button, you send off the pro package. They click the business button, you send over the business package. They ask for the enterprise package. So you could literally have this on your websites that when somebody clicks a button, it automatically goes ahead and sends off that agreement straight to them. And then one last thing is you could connect it into like your email. So for example, if you're receiving emails of people looking to inquire about packages, you could automatically send that off to them as well. And so there's 1,000,001 ways that you could do this. And we're just scratching the surface when it comes to projects, when it comes to proposals and contracts and invoices. But of course, there's so many other agreements or documents we could build, like NDAs or offer letters. Like some people in like real estate, for example, and maybe I'm out of line here because I'm not too familiar with real estate, but like mortgages or some of these industries where there's a lot of compliance in documents, this could be a game changer, because sometimes people are spending like 10 hours on documents, and these could be potentially completely automated. And just to take it one step further, a lot of these documents, the problem is that you need to have the option to conditionally render particular sections of the agreement. And so with a document builder like PandaDoc, automatically you could actually just conditionally render sections down here. Again, I don't want to go on too much of a tangent here, but let's say you offer your landscaping, you offer hedge trimming services, and you offer landscaping services. If they select landscaping services, you could have terms of service for landscaping services that would be independent or separate from whether they selected hedge trimming services. And so if we go back to that sales call, when they select the service, you could have different terms for ads SEO, or automation that are programmatically added onto this agreement. Okay, but I'm gonna attach a lot of these customizations into a sheet over here that you can follow along with after this video if you guys want to customize your document in any way possible. We're going to be walking through a very basic boilerplate template today that you can get up and running in a couple minutes. Sweet. So the next section is going to be this AI section, okay? And so what we're doing here is we are going to go ahead and polish off this agreement. So let's take, for example, this sales form. I may have scribbled in rough notes like, hey, what's Sandy's problem? She needs help with SEO. And then I might have scribbled in some notes being like, here's the kind of solution, but obviously I don't want to send this off to the client because that would seem really unprofessional. And so what we could do is we could use AI to grab the information that we submitted on this form. So remember, somebody submits all this information on the form, it starts this workflow, we collect it here. And then what we can do is use AI to polish it up and make sure it's perfect so that we can send off to that person immediately. So for example, if we were to take a look at this document over here, all of a sudden we could say, hey, here's your problem. Okay, so you're in need of, and then we put the problem in here. So what we asked on the sales call, which is the problem, I need help with SEO, could then be polished and put here. So abc.com has low organic visibility and few inbound leads from weak SEO. And then the solution can be down here. So build an SEO blog, keyword research, editorial calendar, and so on and so forth. And so that's where the AI comes into play here. Essentially, in this section, we have 3 messages: a system message, a user message, and assistant message. Very simply, you can think about the system message as the instructions. You're telling AI what you want it to do. What we want it to do is we want it to polish off the problem and solution so that we can paste it on this document over here so that it is coherent, well thought out, and presents well to the client. Okay, and then the user message over here is just the inputs. We're providing information, so every person you talk to is going to have different problems, they're going to need different solutions, and so we're just passing in the relevant information for Sandy. Next sales call might be Bob, next call might be Dylan, and every time their problems and solutions are going to change. So we're just passing in that individual's specific needs so that it's going to customize it for that person. And then the assistant message is the output. And this is how we structure how we want the data to be outputted. We want 2 fields. We want a problem field, okay? And then we want a solution field over here so that we can map it into the correct section. Problem section, solution section. We're segmenting it into 2 things instead of just being 1 text field for everything. Okay, and so that's essentially in a nutshell what we're doing with this AI field here. And then the last thing is that we are generating this document. So I'm gonna keep this nice and simple as possible. And then there is going to be an attached document that you can go in and make as many customizations as you want. But let's just walk through this step by step. We have an HTTP field here because there's no built-in PandaDoc app. So we actually have to recreate the connection. And how we do that is using an HTTP request. A post method is just saying we are creating a document. We're creating something, and that something happens to be this document right here. We're sending it to this URL, which essentially is the URL you send information to create documents in PandaDoc. They have multiple different URLs. Some URLs are to get documents, some URLs are to update documents, some URLs are to create documents or delete documents or whatever. This URL right here, public version 1 documents, is to create something. Now we have additional information that we're passing in, which in the headers is just like additional context. You can think about it as authorization is essentially a login credential. So if I went in to Gmail right now and it asked me to log in, it's going to ask for an email and a password. You can think about this API key as your password to log in. How we get this particular API key is we have to go into PandaDoc, okay? And in settings down below, we're going to go into API and integrations, scroll down all the way to the bottom, and we have API here. We're going to open this, and we have access to that sandbox API key right here. So we're going to go ahead and copy this and then paste it right in to our workflow here, and then you're good to go. Then we're just passing in 1 more field here. We're accepting application JSON. We're just defining the data structure down here that we're passing in. Now, JSON structure looks like this on the side here, and you can think about it like a way of structuring information. It's similar to how Google Sheets structures information. They're just two ways of doing the same thing pretty much. Okay, so this is the information we're passing in. It looks a bit complicated, but you really don't actually have to change all that much. In fact, you don't even have to change anything because you can download this blueprint and use it pretty much as it is. Let me just walk you through what's going on here. The first thing is, the only thing you really need to change is this template UUID, universal ID. So what this is saying is that when you create your template, okay, and you know it's a template because it has in the URL here a template, you just need to grab this particular ID here and then paste it in. And that's really the only thing. You have send here, which is, do you want to send this automatically to somebody? Yes or no. If you say true, it's going to send automatically. Now, you do need to make sure that you have the actual production API key here rather than the sandbox API key for this to work, and you'll have to reach out to their team, or you'll have to use make.com to be able to send this off automatically. And with make.com, you do not need to have the enterprise plan, you just need the business plan for this to work. And I'll link that video down below as well if you guys want to take a look at that. The next thing is we need a document name. I'm just putting in any name over here. Then we need recipients. Typically, you only need one, but we're putting in two here. One is the sender, which is you. One is the client, which is the person you're sending it to. For the client, we're getting their information from this particular sales form. So when you enter in Sandy, Anderson, email over here, we're pulling in that information and then we're sending it to that person. Okay. And then we just have your classic information here. Now, why I say you only need one person is because if you're generating a document like this, maybe you don't actually want to have fields to sign off on. Like as long as you don't have these fillable fields that are required for you to fill out, you actually can just send it to the person right away. And so a lot of the times I'll just have like my signature written in text here, and I won't have like a fillable field that I have to do every time. And if you structure your document like this, then you can just send it off automatically. Cool. Otherwise, if you have fillable fields, you'll need to actually enter in an email and username and everything for yourself. Then the next thing is tokens. Now, tokens is just a really fancy way of saying that every single document has these particular fields in here, and you can pre-populate them. So when you send a document, these can automatically be filled in for you. And so all of these fields have names. And so if we click on this, okay, actually, if we go into the template, we have like client terms or client company or sender company or client company. So all we need to do is just enter in all of these fields. So we have client company, client first name, client last name. And so all of these are essentially on this document. If I was to create another one and I said client.test, all of a sudden I could add this in to this workflow as well. So if I wanted to add a new field, all I'd have to do is literally just copy this, okay? And I would change this to client test, and I'd change it to client test because the name over here that I just created is client test. I'm just pairing them up together. And then I could pass in whatever field I want to there. And then every single time this is generated, this client test field right here will be populated with the value that I put in right over here. Okay. And so that is how we can easily automatically insert data into this document every single time. Now, apart from that, everything else is pretty much taken care of for you. The last thing is just the pricing table. And I'm going to keep this ultra simple for today. And then of course, I'm going to attach this in here if you want to customize like additional services and if you want to have optional upsells and all of that kind of stuff. But essentially, if we look at this particular document here, we look at the pricing table, this can be as simple or as complex as you want it to be. Now, these pricing tables have multiple rows. So we can have one row here, and then another row could be here, and then another row could be here. And you can have as many of these products or services as you want. And how we do that is in the pricing table, which is right here, okay? We have multiple rows, okay? And these rows are every single row that we see right here. We can add as many of these in here as we want. So this represents one row here, and then this represents another row here. And very simply, all we have to do is you just have to, and I'm going to attach this in the description down below, you just have to copy this in, okay? Or delete it. If you don't want this, you can just delete a particular product or service, or you can paste one right back in. Okay. And the only things that we actually need to change here, I've highlighted in yellow. So we need to change, for example, the product name. Maybe you want this to be social media, or like a social media package. Maybe you want this to be something like, for example, SEO. Okay. And then when you send the document, whatever you name it there will come out right here. You can even add a description down here as well. And so you just add in the description. You can add in a price, and that's going to change the price right over here. Or you could add in a discount. And so on this sales form, when you're talking to Sandy in this example, I could be like, hey, Sandy, you know, I really enjoyed our conversation today. I'm going to give you a 10% discount because I would love to work with you. You're the exact client I want, and so on and so forth. And then you enter in the 10% discount. That is going to be automatically added on here. So you can see that we're pulling the discount from the form. Okay, so on the form, we have this discount, and then that discount is displayed here, which is 10%. And then it's added on to the discount over here, which $100 is 10% of $1,000. And so that's essentially it. We can add as many of these products as we want to onto this agreement, and then send it off and generate these in a matter of a couple seconds. This took me weeks to develop, actually years to develop. It was probably the best automation that I built, but I wanted to simplify it down so that anyone with hopefully any level of experience can get this up and running in a matter of like a couple hours, and then start immediately saving time by using something like this. This was literally, I would say, game-changing at the minimum, life-changing at the absolute extreme, but this is probably one of my favorite automations that I've ever built out, and I'm just super excited to share it with you guys. And of course, in here you can add optional upsells as well, where we actually go ahead and add in these as well. I'm not going to cover it for today just because I don't want it to be too complex, but we're gonna leave that in the document here, as well as having conditionally rendered terms of service. So if you want to have terms of service for one offer, like landscaping versus hedge trimming or whatever, I'm going to leave that in the document as well for you guys. So thank you guys very much for watching this. Just before we part ways here, I did mention that I was going to tell you how you could automate the bookkeeping process, and how we'd go about doing that is through make.com. So with make.com, they have a PandaDoc integration here. What we can do is watch for changes. Okay. And so anytime one of these documents has been officially signed and officially paid over here, then what we can do is we can wait for that payment to come in. And so we can have a webhook. Let's just add another one. Over here, we're going to add a webhook, and we're going to call this test 123. We're going to grab all of the information that PandaDoc has, like all of the contracts, fields, and all of the pricing and everything. We're just asking for all of the data it has in the document, and we're going to wait until a document state has changed. Okay, and then, I'm just going to call this test 123. We're going to save this, and anytime a document changes the state, and there's multiple states, then we could do something like send it over to QuickBooks. Okay, I'm just going to choose anything randomly here. Now, the only thing is we only want to send this if the document is marked as paid. So we want to filter out the status. And with PandaDoc, you have multiple statuses. For example, when a document's uploaded, when there's an error, draft, sent, viewed, rejected, approved. But for us, maybe we want to wait until it's been paid. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the document.paid status, and I'm going to paste it in here. So in other words, when the document status, okay, is marked as paid, then what we're going to do is we're going to send that over to QuickBooks, or maybe we send that over to Google Sheets, for example, and we add a row. And so there's a lot of different things that we can do here, but this is a very nice way to automatically reconcile or update your bookkeeping as soon as you receive a payment. So thanks guys so much for watching. I hope you found value in it. If you did, take a look at my YouTube channel for other videos just like this one, and also take a look at my school community where I help people accomplish these things. First of all, learn these tools so that you can make money and save time in your life. Second of all, build your own AI automation agency where I'll teach you how to find, close, and fulfill deals. And then lastly, for those of you who already have a business, I'm going to give you the exact roadmap and blueprints that allowed me to automate up to 80% of my business, scale that to 7 figures. So hopefully you can find amazing results as well. Okay guys, have a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.